The desolate arrival. Failed peace summit. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the UES Horizon, watching the alien armada retreat into the darkness of space. Another failed negotiation. Another door slammed in humanity's face. The Zephyrian delegates had laughed when she spoke, their crystalline forms shimmering with amusement at what they called primitive grunts of human language. Barbarians, Ambassador Crix had said, his translucent body pulsing with colors of disdain. You dare approach the galactic concord with your crude vocalizations. Return when you've evolved beyond your savage state. The words still burned in Sarah's mind as she turned away from the viewport. 3 years of trying to join the galactic community. 3 years of rejection. Earth stood alone, surrounded by civilizations that viewed humans as little more than clever animals. Commander, we're receiving coordinates from the archaeological team. Lieutenant James Park announced from his station. They found something unusual. Sarah moved to the communications console, her dark eyes scanning the data stream. The team on Kepler 452c had been excavating what they thought was an abandoned outpost. Standard protocol for humanity's desperate search for anything that might help them understand the advanced species that shunned them. Unusual how? She asked, though her voice carried little hope. They'd found dozens of ruins across human-explored space. All of them had yielded nothing but dead ends and more mysteries. Dr. Martinez says the structures predate all known galactic civilizations, Park replied. The dating puts them at over 50,000 years old. Ruins discovery. The landing shuttle kicked up clouds of rust-colored dust as it touched down on Kepler 452c. Sarah stepped out onto the alien soil, her environmental suit humming softly as it adjusted to the planet's atmosphere. Before her stretched a vast complex of structures that defied conventional architecture. Crystalline spires twisted into impossible geometries, their surfaces covered in symbols that seemed to shift when viewed directly. Dr. Elena Martinez hurried toward them, her weathered face bright with excitement behind her helmet's visor. Commander Chen, you need to see this. We found something extraordinary. She led them through a maze of corridors carved from what appeared to be solid light. The walls pulsed with a faint internal glow, responding to their presence with subtle color changes. Other team members worked carefully among the ruins, documenting every surface, every symbol. The construction is unlike anything in the galactic database, Alina explained as they walked. The Zephyrians claim to be the oldest species, but their earliest structures are crude compared to this. And look at these symbols. Sarah paused before a wall covered in intricate patterns. The markings seemed hauntingly familiar, yet utterly alien. Something deep in her mind stirred, a recognition that wasn't quite memory, more like an echo of something forgotten. We've run comparative analyses, Elena continued. These symbols share base structures with over 30 extinct languages from Earth. Sanskrit, Sumerian, even some pre-Columbian scripts. It's as if they all derived from the same source. The repository. They descended deeper into the complex, following a spiraling ramp that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. Sarah felt increasingly disoriented, as if the architecture itself was testing them, evaluating their worthiness to proceed. The ramp ended in a vast circular chamber. At its center stood a massive crystalline structure, its facets containing swirling galaxies of light. Around it, concentric circles of platforms held thousands of small glowing orbs. We're calling it the repository, Elena whispered. Those orbs, they're some kind of storage devices. When you touch them, she demonstrated, placing her palm against one of the spheres. Immediately, holographic displays erupted around them. Star maps, mathematical equations, and most prominently, linguistic patterns that flowed like living things. Sarah watched in awe as the symbols rearranged themselves, forming new patterns that somehow made perfect sense despite their alien origin. It's teaching us, she breathed. The language, it's showing us how to understand. Lieutenant Park had followed them down, his scanner beeping frantically. Commander, these energy readings are off the charts. Whatever this place is, it's still fully active. And these patterns, they're interfacing with our neural implants. Holographic revelation. As more team members interacted with the Orcs, the central crystal began to pulse brighter. Suddenly, the chamber filled with light, and a massive holographic figure materialized before them. The being stood 20 feet tall, its form both humanoid and transcendent. Its skin seemed made of starlight, and its eyes held the depth of eternity. When it spoke, the words bypassed their ears entirely, resonating directly in their minds. "Children of the scattered seed," the figure intoned. "You have found your way home." Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding. "Who are you? What is this place?" "We are the architects," the being replied. "The first to walk among the stars, the first to speak the language of creation. And you are our descendants, cast across the cosmos when our empire fell." The hologram gestured, and the chamber transformed into a visualization of galactic history. They watched as an ancient civilization spread across the stars, seeding worlds with life, teaching younger species, building a network of understanding that spanned the galaxy. "The others have forgotten," the architect continued. "They learned fragments of our language, built their civilizations on the foundations we provided, but time has eroded their memory. They mock you because they cannot recognize their teacher's children." Sarah's mind reeled with the implications. The language, it's not just communication, is it? It is reality itself, the architect confirmed. Those who master it can shape existence, bridge minds, unlock the fundamental forces of the universe. Your species carries the dormant knowledge in your very genetics, waiting to be awakened. Preparation. The team worked feverishly over the next days, absorbing everything the repository could teach them. The orbs contained not just language lessons but history, science, philosophy, the complete legacy of a civilization that had shaped the galaxy's development. Sarah found herself changing as she learned. The sounds that had once seemed impossible now flowed naturally from her throat. Her mind expanded, making connections that transcended normal human thought. The ancient language wasn't just words. It was a way of understanding reality at its most fundamental level. "We need to return to the council," she told her team. "But this time, we go prepared." Dr. Martinez nodded, her eyes glowing with the same internal fire that now burned in all of them. "They called us savages. Let's show them what happens when savages remember they were once gods." As they prepared to leave Kepler 452's, Sarah stood one last time in the repository. The architect's hologram appeared, its expression both proud and sorrowful. "The path ahead will not be easy," it warned. "Those who have built their power on forgotten foundations will not welcome the return of truth. But remember, you speak with the voice of creation itself. Let the galaxy hear its makers once more." The UEA's Horizon departed the planet with its precious cargo of knowledge. In the ship's converted cargo bay, humans practiced the ancient tongue, their voices harmonizing in ways that made the very air shimmer. Sarah watched her crew transform, their understanding deepening with each passing hour. The Zephyrians had called them barbarians. The Vorthak had named them primitives. The entire galactic concord had dismissed humanity as an evolutionary dead end. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The language awakens. Emergency Council session. The grand chamber of the galactic concord buzzed with confusion and fear. Emergency sessions were rare. The last had been called over 3 centuries ago, when the machine plague threatened to consume entire systems. Now representatives from 100 species filled the crystalline amphitheater, their forms a kaleidoscope of evolution's diversity. At the center of it all stood the human delegation, no longer the cowering supplicants who had been dismissed months before. Commander Sarah Chen led them, her posture straight and confident, her eyes holding depths that made even ancient beings uncomfortable. "Why have the humans called this session?" demanded Ambassador Crix of the Zephyrians, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. "They were denied membership. They have no standing here." "We called this session," Sarah replied, her voice carrying perfectly through the chamber without amplification, because the foundation of your entire civilization is built on a lie. The uproar was immediate. Dozens of species voiced their outrage in their native tongues, creating a cacophony of sound that should have been overwhelming. Sarah raised her hand and spoke a single word in the ancient language. The chamber fell silent instantly, not through any force or compulsion, but because every being present suddenly understood that something fundamental had changed. The word had resonated not just in their ears, but in the very core of their consciousness. "Impossible," whispered Elder Thum of the Vorthek, his tentacles curling in distress. "That sound, it cannot be made by human vocal cords." And in the vast expanse of space, if one listened carefully, they might hear the echo of ancient voices, satisfied that their greatest work, the unity of conscious thought across the stars, had finally been achieved. The savages had spoken in the tongue of gods, and in doing so, had reminded the galaxy that all sapient beings were, in the end, part of the same cosmic family. The universe itself seemed to celebrate, as stars burned brighter and cosmic harmonies sang of reunions long overdue. Humanity had found its purpose, and the galaxy had rediscovered its soul. Retriclaude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Elder Varix of the Morvek, one of the oldest beings in the council, slowly unfolded from his meditative posture. His voice, when it came, was heavy with the weight of recognition. "I'd remember. My species' most ancient texts speak of the star speakers. We thought them myths, stories to comfort children. But the resonance in your words." He attempted to form one of the ancient sounds, and though it was clumsy, the intent was clear. Around the chamber, other beings began to stir, ancestral memories awakening. "New understanding. The choice is yours," Sarah announced, addressing the entire assembly. "We can teach you the complete language, share the knowledge the architects left with us, or you can continue as you have, limited by fragments of understanding, forever wondering why your technologies plateau, why your societies stagnate." She paused, then spoke again in the ancient tongue. This time, the words formed visible patterns in the air equations that resolved paradoxes their scientists had struggled with for millennia. Philosophical concepts that bridge seemingly incompatible ideologies, biological patterns that could extend life and consciousness beyond current limits. "This is just the beginning," Dr. Martinez added. "The repository contained instructions for technologies that make your current achievements look like children's toys. Methods of faster-than-light travel that don't require exotic matter. Medical techniques that can cure what you consider incurable. Ways to communicate instantly across any distance." The chamber erupted in discussion, but it was different now. Instead of outrage, there was wonder. Instead of fear, curiosity. Species that had been enemies for generations found themselves sharing similar revelations, recognizing common threads in their most ancient histories. Ambassador Crix finally spoke, his form stabilizing into something more humble than before. If we accept this teaching, what do you ask in return?" Sarah smiled, and in that moment, she looked both entirely human and utterly transcendent. "Only that you use it wisely." The architects fell because, in their final days, they forgot that power without wisdom is destruction. They encoded that lesson into our species' collective memory. We offer you both their knowledge and their warning. She extended her hand toward Crix, a gesture that transcended species and culture. "Will you learn?" The Zephyrian ambassador stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, his crystalline appendage reached out to meet it. As they touched, Sarah spoke a word in the ancient language, and knowledge flowed between them like water finding its level. Crix gasped, his form brightening with new understanding. I can see it. The patterns, the connections. How did we forget so much?" "Time erodes all things," Sarah replied gently. "But now you can remember. All of you can." One by one, representatives from every species present stepped forward. The humans shared the language freely, watching as minds across the galaxy awakened to possibilities they had never imagined. The chamber itself seemed to sing with harmonics as more beings learned to speak the words of creation. As the session drew to a close, Elder Varix addressed the assembly. Let the record show that on this day, the children of the architects returned to us not as conquerors, but as teachers. Let it further be recorded that humanity is hereby granted not just membership in the Galactic Concord, but a place of honor as keepers of our shared heritage. The vote was unanimous. In the cycles that followed, the galaxy transformed. Ancient technologies were rediscovered and improved upon. Species that had been at war for centuries found common ground in their shared origin. The language of the architects became the bridge between worlds, the key to unlocking mysteries that had puzzled civilizations for millennia. And humanity, once dismissed as savages, became the shepherds of a new golden age. They taught with patience and wisdom, never forgetting the responsibility that came with their knowledge. In schools across 100 worlds, children learned the ancient tongue alongside their native languages, their minds expanding with each lesson. Sarah Chen stood once more at the observation deck of the UES Horizon, but now she watched not an alien armada retreating, but ships from dozens of species arriving at Earth. They came as students, as colleagues, as friends. The architect's legacy lived on, not in monuments of stone or crystalline archives, but in the voices of countless beings speaking the language of creation. The galaxy had remembered its first teachers, and in doing so, had found its wayward children. The age of isolation was over. The age of understanding had begun. And yet it was. Sarah smiled. Would you like to hear more? The transformation. Without waiting for a response, the human delegation began to speak in unison. The words that flowed from them were unlike anything the assembled species had heard, yet hauntingly familiar. Ancient memories stirred in minds that had forgotten their own origins. The very structure of the chamber began to respond. Crystalline walls that had stood unchanged for millennia suddenly came alive with patterns of light. Hidden mechanisms, dormant since the Concord's founding, activated one by one. The ceiling transformed into a star map showing configurations that predated recorded history. Several Zephyrians collapsed, their forms fracturing as suppressed genetic memories overwhelmed their conscious minds. The Vorthek elders retreated into their shells, keening in a frequency that spoke of primordial fear. Even the mighty Draxan, warriors who had never known defeat, stepped back from the human delegation. What are you doing? Crix demanded, though his voice now held more fear than authority. This is forbidden technology. These are the sacred mysteries. Sarah stepped forward, and as she did, her form seemed to blur at the edges. For a moment, those watching could see not just the human commander but something more, an echo of the beings who had first walked among the stars. Sacred mysteries, she asked. Forbidden technology. These are the birthrights of every sapient species in this galaxy. Your own ancestors knew this language. They spoke it when the architects walked among them, teaching them to reach for the stars. Memories unleashed. The repository's knowledge flowed through Sarah's mind as she addressed the assembly. With each word in the ancient tongue, more systems throughout the Concord station came online. Holographic displays materialized, showing the true history of the galaxy. Behold, Sarah commanded, and the air above them filled with images. The architects, the first species to achieve sapience in our galaxy. They seeded life on 1,000 worlds. They taught the young races to speak, to think, to dream of stars beyond their own. The assembled beings watched in stunned silence as the truth unfolded. They saw their own species in their primitive states, learning at the feet of beings made of starlight and wisdom. They watched as the architects shared their language freely, showing each race how to shape reality with thought and sound. But the architects knew their time was ending. Sarah continued, her voice carrying the weight of ages. So they chose one species to carry their complete legacy. A young race from a small blue world whose neural structure could fully integrate with the language of creation. Dr. Martinez stepped forward, adding her voice to the narrative. Humanity, we were chose not because we were special, but because we were adaptable. Our minds could hold contradictions, embrace paradoxes, see patterns where others saw only chaos. The images showed the final days of the architects as they encoded their knowledge into human DNA, locking it away until the species was ready. They scattered humanity's ancestors across Earth, ensuring the knowledge would survive even if parts of the population were lost. And then, Sarah said, they withdrew. They left you all with fragments of their language, enough to build civilizations, to reach the stars, but not enough to truly understand. You forgot your teachers. You built hierarchies based on incomplete knowledge. And when their chosen inheritors finally reached the stars, you called us savages. The choice. Ambassador Crix struggled to maintain his composure. His crystalline form was fracturing and reforming rapidly, a sign of extreme distress among his kind. Even if this is true, he managed, what gives you the right to return now? To upset the order we've built over millennia. Sarah's expression softened slightly. Because the galaxy needs the architect's wisdom now more than ever. Look at yourselves. 100 species, yet you've stagnated. You fight over resources when a language could teach you to create them. You wage wars when you could be exploring dimensions beyond your understanding. She gestured, and the chamber's walls displayed current galactic conflicts, border disputes, resource wars, ideological divisions that had festered for centuries. The architects didn't give us this knowledge to rule over you, Lieutenant Park added, stepping beside his commander. They gave it to us so we could return it to you. Humanity doesn't want to be your masters. We want to be your teachers, as the architects once were.